but well,
Okay.
thanks, Lizzie.
Okay. That's great. So, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us. We are going to be talking about professional registration today, and the way we're going to run this session is I'm going to do a short presentation, hopefully about 15 minutes, about the process and about what's expected and what it looks like and what to do. And then we're going to open it up for some questions where Andrew's going to join me in answering them to the best of our abilities. So I think I'll just start straight away into the presentation. Please use the raise hand if you have questions during the presentation, and I will try and keep an eye out on that. Or you can use the chat. If you've got the chat option, you can use the chat to to write questions if you don't want to raise your hand. But let's just get on with it. So just to introduce myself, my name is Sigal. I work at Nottingham University Hospitals as a principal analyst. The main work I do is around improvement analysis. So I've been doing it for several years now. I'm also a registered professional at the advanced practitioner level. That's new. I was a practitioner before then. One of the first cohort of AphA members who became registered with FedIP. And I'm also a member of the Professional Development Committee for AphA. So we are the committee who set up the standards and review the assessments and do all the formal work around the professional registration, among a few other things. I just wanted to highlight, to start with, that professional registration is part of the strategic aims of AphA. In fact, the very first one, which is around building analytics as a profession, and professional registration is part of that, building the profession, where we want to be able to say, yes, people who are registered have shown that they meet a certain standard in analytical work, and that allows them to practice analytics. At the moment, that is not a requirement. Obviously, you can be a member of AphA without being registered, but we are hoping that more and more of AphA members will become registered, and that this is also attached to the national competency framework. So the two work hand in hand, really, and we see them as being part of the same offer. So around professional registration, we've got 5 levels of professional registration, all the way from associate practitioner, where the application is a very simple one, where you just say, yes, I want to, in the next couple of years, be applying for to be a registered practitioner, and all the way up to leading practitioner, where this would be and industry leads, basically, and people who are leading the profession. And in between are practitioner, then there's senior, and then advanced practitioner. So at the moment, the way we're running this at AphA is we've got windows for application. We've got 4 per year. So every quarter there is one in January, April, July, and October. And the next window opens in January, which is why we're having this workshop today, so that people can start preparing their application if that's what they wish to do, to submit it in January. That's true for all the actual registered levels, from practitioner to leading practitioner. For associate practitioners, you can submit at any time, because it's basically saying, I am committing to doing a full application in the near future. And also, if you are already registered and you are doing a reaccreditation, also those applications are welcome at any time, and we review them in the next meeting. We have monthly meetings. So the applications are assessed within 2 months of the application month. So if in January, all of the whole process should be done by the end of March, and you should know way before then whether you've been successful or not, because this is more of a conversation rather than just you submit something and then you hear 2 months later whether you were successful or not. So if assessors find that the application requires a bit more information or something is unclear, they will just contact you. So the purpose here is not to say yes or no, it's to help you get through the registration process and be successful. So there is an option if some of the evidence you want to submit is too sensitive for you to actually submit it and have it saved somewhere outside your trust or your workplace, you can choose to present it to the assessor in a meeting, which I think is quite helpful in those cases where where people do work on very sensitive projects. So once the application is approved and everything has been checked and done, you will be added to the professional register. There is an annual fee for the register, which is £25. This is in addition to the AphA membership. And it is important to note that you must be an AphA member when you apply, but you also need to be an AphA member for the duration of the registration, which is a 3-year period for the application. So we are registering under the Federation of Informatics Professionals, FedIP. This is an umbrella organization for a whole host of other bodies other than AphA. So there would be library services, there would be other digital related professions. I wouldn't even try to tell you what all those acronyms stand for, but basically these are all around digital professions in healthcare. It's FedIP itself is not a membership body, it's just a registration body, and they hold the public register. They set generic registration standards. So we at AphA then took those generic standards and have adapted them specifically to analytics. So what is the process like? We have 9 standards following the FedIP standards, starting from analytical approaches, critical application. So those 2 are very related to the actual analytical work that we do. And those 2 are the ones where if you are a data engineer or a data scientist, those standards may be applied slightly differently to your work area. We are currently discussing how to make that work, but if you do work in those areas, please feel free to ask us how to put through an application and how to make sure that you meet those standards. So it's not formalized yet, but it's absolutely been done. There are registered data engineers, data scientists. So we do that. It's just I guess the text on the application form may throw some people. So after that, there are things that are more generally about the way you work, like how do you organize your work and plan it. There is a standard to do with autonomous practice. So how do you work on your own? What do you do in your own work? How do you make sure your work is of a high standard? So that's all around accountability and responsibility. How do you work with others collaboratively? And then how do you communicate your work to your stakeholders, to those who you're working for and with? And the last two are more formal standards that have to do, one, with the AphA Code of Conduct, which is available on the AphA website if you want to have a look. And basically, you have to demonstrate that you meet the AphA Code of Conduct, which is a professional code of conduct. And lastly, that you undertake continuous professional development. So it's not that you have learned something and then you just go and do it. You have to be able to show that you are constantly improving what it is that you do. And all of this within the context of health domain knowledge. So again, for data engineers, that may mean maybe something slightly different. But again, all of those should be answerable by all the professional families in the AphA currently has. So this is just one example of a registration standard and how we apply it in AphA. So, for example, we take the first one, and what you see across is what the standards to meet would be for a practitioner versus a senior practitioner. So two different levels. The first line there would be the generic standard. So the generic standard is you do informatics tasks in healthcare or health and care. The second one is then the one that we tailored for AphA, which would say something like performing analysis using techniques and understanding the context of this analysis. And that would be how AphA interprets that higher level generic standard. And the bits below are three substandards, which are just more specific questions that we ask people to answer. So for a practitioner, for example, I'll take P12. You want to give details of how you think about data sources and data quality. When you move to senior practitioner, this now would ask you to ask you to answer a slightly more advanced question about how do you select those sources, because as a practitioner you may be told this is your source, just use it. As a senior practitioner, you may actually be required to select your data sources to actually identify and address data quality issues. So as you move across from practitioner to leading practitioner, those questions will become more and more, it's not difficult, but more related to the work you're actually expected to do at that level. Okay, so the application has got three things that you need to actually submit. The first and most important, perhaps, is the reflective practice. We require 3 to 4 reflective practices, and those would be descriptions. There are forms and there are examples on the AphA website. So all of that is actually, it's not out of nowhere. So the reflective practices are basically you describing what you do, and those reflective practices come in support of your application form. So the application form is basically the list of the standards. Your reflective practices should be designed to support those different standards. And then there is an additional portfolio of evidence that supports either the reflective practices or the application form itself when it comes to standards that are not necessarily best suited for a reflective practice. I want to add here that so at the moment, all of that is done through email. So you download the application form, the examples, and then you submit, when you're done, you submit it all to AphA, to Lizzie, and it gets assigned to an assessor. What we are now currently testing is an automated application through the FedIP portal. We have not yet started using it, but it's about to go live any day now, literally. While we're testing, we will still continue to accept applications by email, same method as we've had up till now. So you don't need to worry, just do the application the way you would have before, download the application form and just follow the instructions, basically. But if you would like to help us test the automated portal, which should be live before the start of January, we hope, then please contact us. We will provide help and guidance on what to do and how to do it through the portal if you wish to do that. The application is the same application. You will need to do exactly the same things. It's only that with the portal, you'll be uploading your application instead of sending it by email, if that makes sense. So I'll start talking about the different things you will need to do. The reflective practice, which you will need 3 of at least, is we use a STAR format where you describe the situation, the tasks that you had to do to address the situation or the question or the issue, what actions you took to do it, and then what were the results of your actions. And as you can see, there are things marked as in blue and things marked in red here. This is the mapping to the professional standards in red. So when I, as an assessor, would be reading your application form, you will be telling me, okay, this is where you will go look to see that I have met this standard. So if we're talking about standard 1.3, I will know, okay, 1.3, I go here and I'm like, yeah, I read this, I read the little commentary you put in the application form, and yes, you absolutely meet that standard, tick. The blue ones, if you wish to use them, are references to the evidence that you provide alongside. And we actually prefer that evidence is numbered rather than just saying presentation is attached. And we do have like a matrix where you can enter, and we do prefer it to be an actual numbered list. Following the actual reflective practice, we also want you to reflect on what went well, what didn't go quite as you would have expected, what did you learn from doing things the way you did, and what would you do differently if you had to do the same project again. This is a really important part of the reflective practice, and as you can see, it doesn't actually need to meet the standards directly, but actually is, for us as assessors, very, very important to see that not only did you do the project, but you have learned from it and you are improving your practice because of what you've done. The form looks something like this. This is the first standard for the practitioner level. It would say which level it is. In the standard, or at the top of the file and the top of the page, I think, as well. And what we're asking you to do is put which reflective practice answers what have you done to answer this standard on your reflective practice? What evidence provided would support that? And then write a short commentary, no more than 250 words, which doesn't mean you have to write 250 words, only that we need something that would say, if it's not absolutely clear from the reflective practice, just how does what you've said in the reflective practice meet this standard? And it can be something very short, one sentence of I've done this because this, if that's the question that you're being asked. Okay, I hope this is clear. So commentary, very important, but doesn't need to be very long. What we're hoping not to get is something that says just look at the reflective practice, because then if it doesn't answer the question directly or fully, we have to then go back to you and query that. The evidence matrix is to help you see, it's like a checklist, to help you see that you've met all the standards, that you've provided evidence to support everything. So you would be saying, and it doesn't mean that you have to have reflective practice and evidence provided for every single one of these lines, but you have to have at least one of them. So you can't have a line that's totally empty. You need at least either evidence or reflective practice or both to support each one of the standards or substandards, actually. I think we've actually gone through this. The registration, the application journey starts from what do you do in your day-to-day and goes all the way to what do you plan to do, or what are you doing to keep up professionally with your profession, as you're applying. And that would be the end of the formal presentation. And I think we'll open it up for questions if there are any at this point. We know that some things have changed from if you've been to a previous workshop. Some things may have been maybe slightly different. So happy to answer any, or try to answer any questions, or take back and reply later if there are questions we can't answer here straight away. So
we've got one question that's come up in the chat.
Bro?
So we've got a question which is, are there separate tracks for individual contributors versus analytics managers and leaders? So I'm happy to start off on that one, and then you come in, Sigal. So no, there isn't. It's the 5 levels that Sigal described, isn't it? What I would say is that Sigal and I are both advanced practitioners, but we've got very different kind of roles. Not least because Sigal reports to me, but we both get to be advanced practitioners, don't we? So for me, it's more about hopefully being an analytical manager and leader and doing more work in that space, whereas Sigal, it's more about the advanced analytics. But it's entirely possible for us both to get to the advanced practitioner. To get to the leading, yes, that's going to be more about having a strategic overview. So that is going to definitely get you into the manager and leader space, because you're going to be working at a high level doing strategic planning for the analytics function or broader. But it's entirely possible to get to advanced practitioner through being a leader or an individual contributor, because Sigal and I demonstrate that, don't we? We've done that in our different ways. So hopefully that answers that question from my point of view. I don't know if you want to come in on that, Sigal, as well.
No, exactly. What you said is exactly right. We don't have a separate process. Only the level at which you apply the standards will apply to that level. So if you're applying at the leading level, you wouldn't be expected to answer about what tool do you use to do your analysis necessarily. You would be asked about how do you contribute to strategically promoting analytics in your trust, or something of that sort. Yeah.
Yeah. So William, do you want to come in? Because that was your question, wasn't it?
Yeah, thanks. That's really useful. I think that was my concern, that they're not completely additive. As you move up, you also move across to slightly, parallel things that you're thinking about.
Yes.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did have another question as well, a bit more practical. It talks about a professional sponsor. I presume that's a requirement. Is there a process for finding a sponsor or a way of doing it? And do they have to be registered themselves, or?
So the sponsor does not have to be registered, but they have to know the work that you do. So they have to be able to say, yes, I know this person, and I know this is work that the application reflects their work, the work that they do that I know of. So it can be your line manager, it can be the head of the department. It does not necessarily have to be somebody who's registered with AphA. Or
Okay,
even an analyst, but we would prefer that.
So it could be someone inside my trust.
Yes.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily have to be senior to me. That they'd be probably a peer. Would that be okay?
So I guess, I mean, generally we'd be looking for somebody more senior, because it's somebody who we would recognize as some kind of role that hopefully you're reporting into, or somebody who would be a key stakeholder or customer who would have received some of your work therefore as well. So hopefully it could be that level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
They don't need to necessarily know the details of what you do. Because I see a question here about someone more senior than me who knows what I do. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's quite a good question.
And we've got a question from Debbie, haven't we? So no, you don't have to work through it in that logical way, because we're getting underway, aren't we? So we know that people are going to be in different places already in your careers. So obviously this is something we absolutely face when we're setting something up from scratch, that you don't have to go through that logically. And we had this debate when we first started doing this, and we have people who quite happily go in at the leading practitioner because that's what they're working in now, but they absolutely wouldn't be able to do the kind of things that the lower levels would be, because it's a long time since they've done the coding, or probably back then it was writing macros in Excel, wasn't it? And the world's moving on. So now absolutely there's no requirement to work from one level to the next level to the next level. It's looking at what is the most appropriate level for your current role. And if you've got any queries about that kind of thing as well, it's worth testing out, isn't it? And actually that's something as well in the process, that if you apply for something at a certain level and we think actually you should be applying at a higher level, we'll come back and have that conversation with you. We won't just throw it out and say apply in the next quarter. We'll come back and say, from what you've described, you think you might want to apply at high level. Now, you might not want to, because you might have looked at that and thought, actually, there's some elements of that I'm not quite sure if. That's fine. But it would be one of the things we'd have that conversation, as you said, Sigal, isn't it? To say, and it could be, we think maybe you've applied at too high a level at this point, and maybe it should be a lower level for now. So again, that can be part of the conversation, because you can move a lot of the stuff across then. It's not just a throw out, go back to the beginning, but we would come back and say, actually, it could go above or below, if we see that.
Does that answer, Debbie? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. There was a question here about work done in previous roles or previous organizations. So that's a really good question, and we have come across this before. So I think we would want to see recent work, and we realize that people will be moving roles and perhaps not be able to provide as much evidence. In that case, we would recommend that you first of all register as an associate practitioner, which basically is saying, I intend to apply at a higher level. And then once you've done a couple of projects in your new role, you can then make a full application. If it's within the same registration year, you won't need to pay again. Okay, so I know this was a question that was previously asked. So if you register within the year or at a higher level, then it's not a problem. We just change it over. You're not paying again for registering. And that allows people to get some work under their belt in their new role. On the other hand, if you can provide enough evidence from your previous role, then there is nothing to keep you from applying based on what you've done in your previous role. We would prefer to have work that's recent. So I would say no older than 3 years.
Yeah, I think you're right. And because the registration lasts for 3 years, doesn't it? Yeah. So there's a nice kind of, and I guess we'd look at it and say, if all your examples for like from 3 years ago, well, that'd be a little bit weird, wouldn't it? As to why you've got nothing more recent. But if it was a work that covered across a 3-year period, because you've got some recent and you've got some that you think is good from a previous role, absolutely, it could cover a multi-year period. It doesn't just have to be the current organization at all, because yeah, that's going to happen, and you could have some good work that suits a reflective practice from a previous job.
That's right.
So yeah, that's okay. So we've got a question about the difference between commentary and reflective practice, haven't we?
So the reflective practice is you describing the work that you do. It's a narrative, and it's very focused on the actual work, what happened. So various bits in it will apply to specific standards, but and the commentary, the only reason that we ask for a commentary is if it's not absolutely clear. So if you say in your reflective practice, for example, I chose to use Excel for this project, I have considered using something else, X, but decided not to because, and that's in your reflective practice, then that answers the standard exactly as worded, for example. Okay, in that case, that is enough. But sometimes you would just say, oh, I used Excel. If you used Excel, but the question in the standard says, could you also tell us why you chose this, or did you consider other methods? Then you need to address that in the commentary. And the commentary is there for, you can also add, you can say, this is in the reflective practice, but I've also got further evidence here. Here it is, and that can be just a piece of evidence, like a piece of analysis or something that's not in the reflective practice. So the reflective practices may not cover all the different standards. For those that aren't, we would want you to put something in the commentary that tells me how you do meet that standard without the reflective practice. What does the evidence tell me? Andrew, I don't know if that's... did Andrew... Oh, I think he just got... he must have had a fail. So sorry, I'm going to try and read some of the comments. But if you had a question that wasn't answered yet, if you could raise your hand and we can do that rather than me trying to read through all the comments. Oh, yep.
Hi, sir.
Oh, hi.
Sorry. It was just one more thing about the sponsors. So what they would need to do, I guess, is read through the application and satisfy themselves that it's a true reflection of the person, and then sign it off. Is there anything more that they would need to do as part of the application process, or is that there?
No, except that there is one thing. So if they already are professionally registered, then they can approve your evidence, so you don't need to actually submit it to us. So we will take somebody's word, if they're registered, that the evidence that you've submitted does meet the standard. And this goes to, if your evidence is sensitive, you know, and should not leave the trust, for example, you could have it approved by a registered sponsor or registered. It doesn't have to be your sponsor even. You can have them approve your evidence, in which case the assessor won't need to be going through the evidence. You'd still need the reflective practice, but not all the evidence that sits behind that, because we would basically put a tick that if you know, if somebody who's registered, seen it, and says that's fine, it's a given. So I guess that's I don't know, the slight twist on the sponsor question.
Yeah, great, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Brown, what questions have we got left?
I don't know. I'm trying to read through them.
Yeah, I got chucked out for a minute. You see, that's fine.
Yeah. Thanks for the update.
So have you answered the question about what if the new role is primarily managerial?
No, we haven't.
So it's a bit. So Marco, do you want to come in? So what's the thinking there?
So happy to chime in. I just recently started a new role that is primarily managerial, where I'm overlooking any number of analysts, senior analysts, and the like. Obviously, I have past experience, several years worth, that got me to this point, but I'm not able to necessarily evidence that as I no longer have access to those resources anymore, obviously in private organizations and whatnot. I can describe them to the best of my ability, but I'm unlikely to be able to recite things as I would like. So I'm just curious, from your perspective, what does that look like if I'm applying to be an advanced practitioner in the long term?
So again, I think that's exactly what I went through. So I think there's two different things there, isn't it? There's having enough time then in a role where you can share some evidence. That's one part of it, because if it was in a private organization and it's not able to share it and it's really commercially confident, then okay, well, you're going to have to build up time in that. In terms of it then becomes about your leadership or managerial role is in an analytical setting, which is perfectly fine. So you're describing more around how you problem solve, how you task manage, how you shape the choice of analytical techniques to use. So that, and that's the difference between my role and Sigal's role. And so that was what I was describing, to say I'm directing the role of specialist. So it's still describing that work in an analytical setting. So you're not just being a general manager, it's still AphA, but you're describing analytical tasks. So this was the problem we took on as a team. This is how we made the choices about approaches to use. This is how we solve problems. This is how I've developed the analytical capability of the team. This is how I've shaped the offering in the organization. So I'm sure you'll be able to describe those kind of things. And then it's just building up enough time in your role, then, isn't it, so that you feel comfortable sharing the evidence of those things. But that should perfectly fit what you've described.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Good. Thank you.
There's another hand. Rebecca has got her hand up.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hi.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about the evidence. So for example, if I wanted to evidence a report that I'd used in one of my reflective practice pieces, would I sort of attach that on a separate Word document with a table that's like a matrix that references, and attach it as an embedded Excel file or a screenshot? I'm just wondering, for all the different types of evidence, how they are sent across and provided alongside the application, and if you had any examples of how that had been done. It's just one thing that I'm not 100% clear on compared to all the rest of it. So if you've got any advice.
It can be either.
Yeah.
You can
either, okay.
You can attach the actual report if it doesn't have any confidential information on it, obviously. And and you can also do a screenshot if you do need to hide some. Basically, the assessor needs to say, this is something you've done. This is what it looks, when you're describing it, this is what it looks like. It shows great analytical work. It shows what you're telling us that you've done and how you handled issues like confidentiality and or any of whatever this is used as evidence for. So
Okay.
I think in my application I submitted links to published work or websites for some things. I submitted screenshots, emails or screenshots of emails to
Anything you could possibly think of.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Okay.
the evidence is
Thank
there's
you.
not one size fits all. It's whatever
Okay,
fits.
thank you.
Yeah. Because the evidence matrix that you showed in your presentation, Sigal, is the thing that will say for the substandard, we just want you then to say, evidence E1.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a list of, and it could be in a zip file, you'll have all of those different things. So a report could be evidence bit E1. So we'll just know when we're looking at a certain standard, we're looking at evidence 1 out of however many, and then that could be the variety of forms that you've described. So it's just so we can do that linking, isn't it? Because obviously there could be quite a range of evidence that's built up. So we've just got to be able to track through to know when you say it's this bit of evidence, it's evidence E12, which is a report or a certificate or something, and that matches to reflective
As long as
practice
it's
piece
clear
1.
and you can
Yeah,
match it.
exactly.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
that, but it can be an absolute variety of form of things to illustrate whatever you need to. Well, thanks for the question.
Not seeing any more hands, but I'm not sure we've answered everything in the chat, so I'm going to try and go through that again. Really helpful. Okay.
I think we've got through most, but anybody shout up if we've missed anything.
Yes, do please. Okay.
Right.
Okay. There will be a second workshop in the middle of January. So any of you who do decide to go for filling in the application forms and you've got specific questions to ask or specific queries or anything like that, there will be another workshop made available. So mid-January, so leaving you another 2 weeks to actually complete if you're stuck or if you need help, or if one of the standards is not very clear or you're not sure what evidence to provide or anything like that. You can come and ask. It would be, is it Mark Foy who's going to give that, I think?
I think so, an Emma, isn't it?
Yeah,
An Emma.
so, and they'll be happy to answer any of your questions. So just wanted to highlight that that you're not alone, sort of thing. And again, I want to emphasize that the process here is not in order to fail anyone. It's exactly the opposite. We are here to help you do this to a high standard that meets industry standard for the register, rather than trying to find fault. So
yeah, absolutely, because we want to increase our numbers, don't we? So we want to do this with due process, but this is also about encouraging more people to become, so it's definitely our interest. And so so reach out as well. If you've got any concerns, then reach out. Don't kind of get to the point and then think I didn't get something answered, which means you then delay for another 3 months. We'd rather hear about those kind of questions and work through. So I'll put my contacts in so that I can help triage or direct something to another
Lizzie
member
already
as well.
put. You can send it to info@AphA analysts as well, and I'll put my
because we want to help people get through this and get more people on the register. Brilliant. So thank you all for attending.
Yes,
Thank you all for your questions. Hope that was useful. Look forward to seeing some applications.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.